using this session to just go through a couple of questions to talk about the style or the approach for the exams. And I will just kind of be facilitating the session. And I would expect that I'll be hoping that this session will be very interactive, just to feel so that I can gauge where you are at. You can also learn from the process because you might not have covered one or two areas now. And because we're talking about it, when someone answering the question, it might just click to you and you never can tell. So please pay attention, don't be distracted, and let's see how it goes. So, um, let's try a couple of questions here. But first, before I go through the questions, the format of the questions in the exams would be your typical case study with some MCQ questions. Then you would have some other case studies. So where you're meant to see questions around risk assessment, which is like a constant factor. You would always see a question on risk. You would always see a question around audit evidence, because they would expect that as someone who is an external auditor, you should be able to document or obtain the right audit evidence or perform the right procedures that would give you the right evidence. And you would usually see a question around internal control. So internal control, risk assessment, planning and risk assessment, and audit evidence. Now, you might see some like subsections that will talk about reporting. For example, they would say, okay, what's the impact on the report? What's the impact on the opinion? So you might see areas like that, or you might also see areas around knowledge-based, audit knowledge-based questions that talks to reporting as well. Such similar to audit framework, where we talk about code of corporate governance, where we talk about internal audit, where we talk about audit committee, where we talk about independence, the self-review, familiarity, and all of those kind of stuff. So you most likely see a couple of those ones either as a sub or as part of your MCQ. So what I'm hoping we would be able to achieve today is to try to solve some questions across all of these areas and to have some multiple choice questions as well. So the first half session would be us taking you through the multiple choice questions and solving a question on internal control, solving another question on planning and risk assessment. Then the second half of the session, we will try as much as possible to facilitate the session where you would solve a question around audit evidence and another around planning and risk assessment. So, with that, let's get started. So I'm going to read this question. So these are the multiple choice questions, right? I'm going to read this question and let's see what you think the answer is and why you feel that's the answer. Are you guys with me?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So I've sent this question to the WhatsApp group. I guess you have them as well, but I'm going to read. It says, you're an audit manager of Buffon and Co, responsible for the audit of Maldini Co, and you have become aware of the following information. The audit engagement partner, who is responsible for the audit of Maldini Co., a listed company, has been in place for approximately 8 years, and her son has just been offered a role with Maldini Co. as a sales manager. This role would entitle him to shares in Maldini Co. as part of his remuneration package. Internal audit function. Maldini Co.'s board of directors is considering establishing an internal audit function, and the finance director has asked the firm about the differences in the role of internal audit and external audit. If the internal audit function is established, the board has suggested that they may wish to outsource this to Buffon. Audit characteristics. Remember, Buffon is the external audit firm for which you are the audit manager. Auditor characteristics. Audit management request for information the different roles of internal and external auditors. The audit assistant has collated a list of key characteristics. 1, appointed by audit committee. 2, reports are publicly available to shareholders. 3, review effectiveness of internal controls to improve operations. 4, express an opinion on the truth and fairness of the financial statement. Now, fees. The finance director has suggested to the board that if Buffon and Co. is appointed as internal analysts as well as external auditors, then fees should be renegotiated with at least 20% of all internal and external audit fees being based on the profit after tax of the company, as this will align the interests of Buffon and Co. and Maldini Co. The fee income would be significant to Buffon and Co. So now the questions. So the first question, from the review of the information above, your audit assistant has highlighted some of the potential risks to independence in respect of the audit of Maldini Co. 1, length of time the audit partner has been in position. 2, Maldini Co.'s request for advice regarding internal audit. 3, possible provision of internal audit services. 4, basis of fee. So the question is, which of the following options currently identify the valid threats to independence and allocates the threat to the appropriate category? Self-interest, self-review, familiarity. So let's see. What do you guys think? Okay, is anyone here?
Yes, please, we are.
Okay, so are we thinking about the answer? Or
Yes.
okay, usually
I'm thinking D, sir.
you're thinking D. Okay. So is anyone else thinking something else?
I'm also going for D.
You are going for D. Okay, okay, Julie, can you talk us through D? Why do you think it's D?
Okay. I think it's D because the self-interest, that is hello.
I'm with you, please.
Okay. The first one, self-interest, is number 4 because of the basis of the fee. The fee is tied to the performance and the profit the company makes. And the auditors, they'll definitely want a position whereby the company will make a profit. So it's a sort of self-interest for them. Then the self-review, because they're the ones that will be the external auditors. If they're also the internal auditors, there's possibility that they'll review their own work. Their familiarity, the length of time that the audit engagement partner has been in that position that is like 8 years or so, so it's a lot of time. And then should be to be like a familiarity threat because you should be very familiar with the workers there, and so would they'll be relaxed within themselves. They could overlook some things where shouldn't.
Okay. Okay. So does anyone have a contrary view? Thank you, Zure.
Yes. Yes, I would
Okay.
go for C. Being that the length of time for the audit engagement partner gives rise to a familiarity trait. And then the Maldini's request for advice regarding internal audits is more of a self-interest, since they might, because since they think income would increase for them, they might want to tend the what's it called now, Maldini code towards using them. And then 3 and 4, provision of internal audit services. That's if they provide internal audit services for them, that will be a self-review threat for them. Yes, but the
Okay.
basis of yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Eunice. And so does anyone have a different view other than C and D? Okay, so I guess no one has a different view. So there are two ways one can attempt this question. You can do elimination method, or you can do the other way. So the elimination method is you look for the one that doesn't even look like a threat at all. So that gives you a room to take out any option, right? Because all the options, because if it's not a threat, it means it will neither be a self-review or a self-interest or familiarity threat. Now, if you take a step back and look at the advice that they've asked for example, let me see if I can get to that point. Okay, so if you look at the advice, right? Internal audit function. It says Maldini Co's board of directors is considering establishing an internal audit function, and the finance director has asked your firm about the differences in the role of internal audit and external audit. So if the internal audit function is established, the board has suggested that the may wish to outsource, but the advice in this instance is just for you to help to explain the differences between the two roles. So in that light, it looks like Maldini's request for advice regarding internal audit would not be a threat, right? Because again, as it connotes, they're just requesting for advice. They're not saying that you're going to do the job, right? So if they're just requesting for advice, it doesn't automatically indicate that you're already rendering internal audit services to them. So in that light, option 2 goes out. So option 2 goes out because it don't lead to a self-interest, self-review, or familiarity. Then it means you're left with D. So that's a way of looking at it. The other way is when your fee is contingent. No, so it's usually prohibited that your fee should be contingent on a specific basis, right? So if your basis of the fee is meant to be based on property facts or what have you, then there would be a self-interest threat, right? So that's why 4 would be self-interest, because if you're going to be paying fee based on PBT, you most likely be implied to say if your PBT increases, your audit fee will most likely increase. So there would be a form of, because if you want increase in audit fee, you'll most likely be pushing for, you'll be going in favor of the client to ensure that their profit before tax also increases. So that's more like a self-interest threat. And number 3 definitely is a self-review threat, because if you're performing some internal audit function, or you're giving comfort over internal control over financial reporting, for example, and our work is usually based on what auditors done. So in that light, there's a self-review element, and long association with an entity provides room for familiarity. So since they've talked about the length of time and what is permitted based on the code of ethics of ACCA is 7 years. But in this case, what we have, the audit partner familiarizing himself with the audit for a longer period of like 8 years. So which is a familiarity threat. And that's why D is the right answer. Any questions? Any question? No question, I guess. Can I proceed? So let's look at the second one. In relation to the audit engagement partner holding the role for 8 years and assumes offer of employment with Maldini Co., which of the following safeguards should be implemented in order to comply with ACCA's Code of Ethics and Conduct? A, the audit engagement partner should be removed from the audit team. B, the engagement quality reviewer should be appointed. C, a third party such as the professional body should be consulted on key audit judgments, and D, the firm should resign from the audit. What do you guys think?
I think it's A.
I think it's A.
Okay. So in order to ensure that we get everyone's participation, because from the way I see it, I do not know if everyone is following. So what I would do, as usual, is allow people to vote in. Please note, you can't be indifferent. If you're not voting, I'm going to be calling on you. So in that light, so what I'm saying is we have A to D. So if I call on A, if you've chosen A, just raise your hands. If I call on B, raise your hands. C, raise your hands. And D, raise your hands. Then I'll let you share why you feel is A, B, C, D. So in this case, I'll start from D. So if you feel the answer is D, please raise your hands. This is, they should resign from the audit. Okay. No one says D. Okay. C. Okay. Amina says D. Okay. Great.
Sorry,
So,
I thought you meant A. Sorry, that was not what I wanted to say.
okay.
My answer is
Okay.
A.
Okay. C. If you're going for C, can you raise your hands? Okay, no one is going for C. If you're going for B, raise your hands. Okay, Bukola is going for B. Okay, Bukola, you can drop your hands. If you're going for A, raise your hands. Okay, so I have 14 people raising their hands. So I'm going to call on Chinaza or Abiodun. Okay, Abiodun, you have now raised your hands. Chinaza, Boluwatife. Thank you. You guys can drop your hands. Chinaza, what's your own answer? Chinaza. Boluwatife.
Absence.
Okay.
Yes, so I'm not sure, but I think it's between A or B. But I think I'm
Okay.
going to go more with B. That like an engagement quality control reviewer should be appointed. I don't know
Okay. So
if
why
it's
do you
very
think?
easy to just remove. Yes, so I don't think it's very easy like that to just remove a partner from a team because of the number of years. So if the partner cannot be removed, like a control reviewer should be appointed. That's just my thought process. I'm not sure.
Okay. Smart answer, Bolo Atife. Okay. Bukola, what do you think?
Okay, so I also feel that for the fact that the partner has stayed for 8 years, even if we are thinking that it can there can be fraud or something, or he can do something that is against his actual role. So another reviewer can be appointed just to monitor what the partner has done. That's why I picked B.
Okay. Thank you, Bukola. Good one. So let's see those who've gone for A. And yeah, Ramat. Ramat? Ramat, are you there? Okay.
This place is noisy. I'm here, please.
Okay. How they doing? Let's go.
Okay, Miss Olumi, so there are two added doings now. Which one do you?
Yours.
Okay, my own added. Good afternoon, sir.
Good
So
afternoon.
I joined late, but I just quickly read the first paragraph, and I saw that this audit engagement partner. So the issue is not just that because she has been there or he has been there for 8 years. I think that's even the list of this thing. Is the fact that the son would then own a percentage of this same company by way of reward. You know, they said they're going to give him shares. You understand? So I think that the best way to handle this, not just to, so if it had been just the fact that it's been there for 8 years, we would have appointed, somebody else to, I mean, gotten like a review of his or her work. I'm not sure if the person is a male or a female, but because of the son that has also been mentioned, I believe that the person should be replaced as an audit part as what's the name of that thing, as an audit engagement partner, uh
Okay.
the team that is on this particular audit engagement.
Okay. Thank you. Uh, so the answer is A, and I'll just tell you why the answer is not B. Because of the nature of this entity. The entity is a listed one, and for the fact that the entity is listed, an engagement quality reviewer is already appointed. So you need not a second engagement quality reviewer for this purpose. The first answer, which is A, or the answer, which is A, indicates that the partner should be removed from this audit team. There's long association. You shouldn't be on the audit for more than 7 years. So because he's on the audit for more than 7 years, it should be rotated out. Once it's rotated out of the engagement, it kind of discounts the other point, which is the son's offer of employment with Maldini, because he's no longer on the engagement. Again, he's just one of the partners within the firm, which is fine, but he's not on that engagement team. And despite the fact that the source of our employment is with them, which he can necessarily just do what he wants, but there's no relationship in this case because his father is not on the engagement team. It doesn't need to get to the point. We don't think that the threat is as significant enough as to make the firm resign from the audit. Rather, the engagement partner should be rotated out and they should bring someone else to the engagement team. Does that make sense? Okay, Bukola.
Okay, so I didn't get the last part, but I would have thought that instead of removing the engagement partner, they should just rotate. There should be a rotation. Instead of
Yeah,
just
it's
removing
technically
straight.
the same thing.
Okay.
If you're rotated out, you are removed from the engagement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what rotation means. It means you're no longer part of the engagement team. But they're just using a different term in this case.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so can we move on? Yeah, great. So third question says, in line with ACCA's Code of Ethics and Conduct, which of the following factors must be considered before the internal audit engagement should be accepted? Okay, one says whether the external audit team has the expertise to carry out the internal audit work. Two says if the assignments will relate to internal controls over financial reporting. Three is if management will accept responsibility for implementing appropriate recommendation. And four is the probable timescale for outsourcing of the internal audit function. So I'm going to give us 30 seconds, then I'll start asking us to make a choice, whether A, B, or C. So each of these MCQs, please don't spend more than 1 minute on the question. Go through the question, read. If you have a view, don't spend too much time on it. You can go back to your case study, then come back if you are not able to answer it. Okay, now time. So let's go. A. Who's going for A? Okay, Ramat. Thank you, Ramat. Oh, okay. Just to for me, Sibyl. 3 of you going for A. Philip for A. So just be on standby. Sibyl and Philip, you will be the one to tell us why A is the answer. Okay, okay, you can drop your hands. Who's going for B? Who's going for B? Victoria, are you still raising your hands? Okay. Victoria, who wants to go for B? Victoria? Anyone else? Okay. Aroso Gene. I'm hoping I pronounce the name properly. So, and Amina. So Amina and Aroso Gene, both of you will tell me why it is B later on. Okay, great. Let's move. Who's going for C? C. Olubumi. Anyone who's supporting Olubumi?
Actually, I made my
Sorry, I didn't hear
decision.
you.
I said I'm actually
Olubumi.
going for B, but I made the decision.
Okay, okay, you going for B. Okay, cool. Okay, who's going for C? Doesn't mean no one is going for C. Are these questions difficult? Are these questions difficult, guys? C. Who is going for C? No one. Who is going for D? Who is
Sir,
going for D?
Sir, I am going for C.
Okay, Igbemi is going for C. Eunice, what are you going for?
D. D.
D. You know, the beauty about this question is that all of you went for all the answers, so it's very interesting. Okay, let's take it. Let's start with the C. Okay, tell me why it's C. Then you need to tell us why it's D later on. Okay. Someone went for C. Oh, yeah, please, quickly.
Okay, so
Where is she?
Yes, hi, sir.
I'm with you. Yeah, Miss Bosola. Yes, sir. Oluwagbemisola, we can't hear you.
Okay,
Okay, it looks like Gbemisola.
okay, so I eliminated 2 and 3. So I felt I am not quite sure though if the assignments relate to internal controls over financial reporting. I feel like financial reporting is external audits, not internal audit. Then if management should accept responsibility for implementing appropriate recommendations, I feel that that is redundant because it's the management responsibility for implementing the recommendations.
That's it. Interesting. Okay, I've noted your viewpoint and I've held it. Oh yeah, Eunice. D.
Okay, so for me, I eliminated 2. And then for 3, I feel like it's important that the management accepts responsibility to implement the recommendations made by the internal control. Yes, so that was why I went for D.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Who went for A? Who went for
I
A?
did. I went for
Okay,
A.
I'm Matt. Let's hear you. Or Philip. Happy to hear you too. Guys, are you responding? Okay.
I also went for A.
So, okay, yes. Let's say your answer. Why did you go for A?
Okay, I went for A because it said in line with ACCA's Code of Ethics and Conduct, which of these should be considered. So we're considering the external auditors taking on the work of the internal audit. So we have to be certain that they have the expertise to carry it out, not just for them to do it because there's I say there's an attractive fee arrangement. And then I feel that too as well, if the internal controls relate to financial reporting, which the external auditors are supposed to what's that word now? Is it review and give an opinion on, then there will be the risk of self-review. Then for 3, um yeah, you have, I feel like 3 is there because 3 would have been dicey, but there was no option without 3. But yes, management is supposed to accept their um responsibility for internal control, so the auditor is supposed to confirm that they wouldn't leave it to them because they are having to take on the work if they will. So that's why I went with A. Then for
Mm.
the time scale, I don't think is an issue of the code of ethics. I think it's something related to the company. So that's why I eliminated 4.
Okay, fair point. Fair point. Okay, my B people. Oh yeah, B guys. Oh yeah, shoot.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The reason why I choose B is because number one, the company is a listed company, and being a listed company, the external auditor cannot carry out internal audit for assignments that are significant to for controls that are significant for financial reporting. So that's why I went with answer number 2. So, and after going for answer number 2, definitely number 3 is in every option. So I just went straight to my number 2 because I remember from what I read before that if the assignment will not relate to significant internal controls or over financial reporting. So that's why I went with 2 because I can remember that one very well.
Okay. So thank you very much. So the answer is B, 2 and 3. Now, it is prohibited for listed entities or the external auditors of listed entities to carry out their internal audit work function. So it's like, what are we even considering? There's no need to consider because it's even prohibited in the first instance, right? So that strikes out 1. Now, maybe there could be specific justification around saying, okay, what assignments are we to do, right? So you want to now start evaluating whether it's something we can do. If the assignments relate to internal controls over financial reporting, because as auditors, you're reporting over financial reporting, right? So, and you're going to place reliance one way or the other over the internal controls. So you want to have that assessment or evaluation if the work they are even planning to give to you relates to something you would be relying on, which would lead to a self-review threat. So in that case, 2 fits into a consideration. Now, 3, sometimes there are services that you can perform, right? But there are recommendations you can make. There are stuff you can do for your client. But management should be able to take responsibility for implementing those recommendations. So are they ready? Even when, as auditors, when we perform some tasks, we issue in our engagement letter, we specifically state that management is responsible for so and so. In our letter of representation, we usually ask management to accept responsibility for a couple of stuffs. So when we are performing some engagements for them, it's usually very key that management accepts responsibility, and whether they or they do not would have a role to play on whether the engagement would be accepted or not. So 4 doesn't really, time scale of for outsourcing of the internal audit function doesn't have anything to do with our consideration, right? Because it doesn't have any impact. And that's why 4 is not something that we would think about. And that's why the answer is just limited to 2 and 3.
Please, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah,
Amici,
so
please.
thank you. I get the part where we have to be conscious of the nature of the company when considering these things. But for the same reason why we're eliminating one, if it is prohibited, why are they considering whether it would have effect on the financial reporting? Like I'm just thinking, I know it's wrong. One is wrong, but I'm just wondering why we are bothering to still check when it's prohibited.
Yeah, so
There's no answer. Just
no,
asking.
so when you do engagements for the client, right? And it's more like a internal audit assignment. First rule is you don't even need to talk about why we're even automatically taking out one is because they're talking about whether you have the expertise or not, right? And having the expertise is not even the question in the first instance. It's because it's not even a consideration for you to carry out internal audit work. Now, the point you're talking about is why we're even talking about whether it's internal controls over internal audit over financial reporting, or whether it's otherwise. Sometimes, or usually, we are able to do certain level of evaluation to kind of say that, okay, you know what, because of the nature of what we're trying to profile or what kind of services we're trying to render, it doesn't have anything to do with financial reporting. So it means that there would be no element or there will be no process that we are auditing that we will be reviewing for the client. So because there's no link, I think it's a consideration. It's something that we can look into if it doesn't have anything that will give room for self-review threat. Because the objective of them saying external auditors cannot do internal audit work is because it can lead to a self-review threat. So if you can demonstrate, for example, that it wouldn't lead to, because what you're doing doesn't even have anything to do with an area you'll be covering during your audit, then it's possible to consider. Does that make sense?
I hear you, Sha.
It doesn't too.
Because the
It doesn't make
argument is the
sense.
same. For me, the argument
Yeah,
is the same.
because
And then we're trying to make you work for the second guy and not make you work for the first guy.
for the first one, I agree with
Because
you.
if I say that you relate to internal controls and I don't have expertise, let's assume it wasn't a listed company, then I shouldn't still go ahead. So I feel like the argument should apply to 1 and 2. I hear you, but I'm not just convinced.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because I don't know if I can explain it differently. Uh, I'm not sure I'll be able to explain that differently. Rather than that, but I hear I will hear where you're coming from. I hear where you're
Can I
coming from.
try?
Sorry, can I
Hello?
say something?
Okay, Uche.
Yeah, can I try? Okay.
So I know where they said a firm cannot provide internal audit service for a listed audit client, and they specifically state it in the code of ethics where they said if the service relates to internal control over financial reporting. So if you are saying we can provide services for internal audit service for a client of ours when the service is related to, so there is no even need for us to even consider two actors. So I think 2 and 1 should even be out of our options.
No,
That's
but
why I don't understand what you're saying.
but that's what I'm saying as well, and that's the consideration. What you're planning to knock off is the fact that is this engagement even related to internal control over financial reporting, or is it not? You can say so. You have an internal audit function or engagement that you want to do, and you're trying to consider if it's related or not related, because whether you are going to consider it is whether it's related to whether it's an ICFR related engagement or not. Do you get my point?
Okay, I do. I think I do.
Okay, cool. So can I proceed?
Yes, please.
Oh yeah. So let's look at the next one. So which of the following options correctly allocates the auditor characteristics collated by the audit assistant to the role of internal and external auditors? So if you remember at the top here, there were characteristics mentioned here. Appointed by audit committees, reports are publicly available to shareholders, review effectiveness of internal controls to improve operations.
Sir, please, I have a question.
Okay, is on which one?
So for number one, I didn't get the answer.
For number one, let me see. For this one, right? Yeah, this one, I think the answer is D. That's self-interest is for only self-review is provision of audit services because we've knocked out two, and familiarity is the long association, which is one. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So going back to the characteristics, they said number one is appointed by audit committee. Number two is reports are publicly available to shareholders. Number three is review effectiveness of internal controls to improve operations. Number four, express an opinion on the truth and fairness of the financial statement. So they want us to split it between which one is related to internal auditors or which one is related to external audit. So now that we've had a look at the four items again, so I'll just go back and say, okay, external, internal, which is correct.
The answer is D.
Okay, so let me hold on. Let me just confirm what the answer is.
I choose C, sir.
It's
Okay,
B.
so let's now answer the question now. Okay, who is going for A?
Sorry,
Who's
answer
going for
is
A?
answer is D, not D.
Sorry, who's going for A? I guess nobody's going for A. Who's going for B? Is anyone going for B? B. I have Bumi and Inis. I have Bolo Atife for B. Okay. Who is going for C? You can drop your hands, four of you. Off. Okay. Are these C's, right? Are these and C's? Okay. Let's say they are C's.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So a lot of you have gone for C. Then is anyone go for D? Can you drop your hands? Is anyone going for D? D. Victoria, are you for D?
No, I'm for C.
Okay, you're C. Esther, are you for D?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go with you first, Esther. Okay, why do you choose D?
I don't know, sincerely. It just appeared as the most appealing to me.
Okay, tell me why it appeals to you. This is two only.
Because
Two only.
by default, if not, okay. Sorry, I was looking at question 5. Oh. I didn't know it was question 4.
Okay. So I guess you want to think about your answer, right?
Okay.
Okay, cool. So those who chose B. Those who chose B. Where are you guys? Eunice?
Yes. So for external auditors, they must be appointed by audit committee, and they usually express an opinion on the fairness of the financial statement. While internal auditors, their reports are publicly available, and they also review effectiveness of internal control.
Okay, so B says 1 and 4. 1 and 4 is appointed by audit committee. 4 is express an opinion on the truth and fairness of the financial statements. Okay. So, okay, let me quickly answer this one. See, don't worry, I'll give you an opportunity later. This question looks very simple. So, first, external auditors definitely do not review effectiveness of internal controls to improve operations, right? That's the work of an internal auditor. So I struck out 3 from. So, external auditors are not appointed by the audit committee.
Exactly.
They are appointed by the shareholders. Can I proceed?
Excuse me, shareholders or the board?
They are appointed by the shareholders.
Shareholders.
Yes, that's why if you go to an AGM, you would see them saying that they should appoint that one of the resolutions for the day is to appoint this what do you call it? To appoint the external auditors. So that's usually one of the resolutions at the AGM where you have the shareholders. Now, what you see, there are different kind of entities, right? You have the smaller entities where most likely the board members are the shareholders. So it might be limited to that one, right? Audit committee usually, they can recommend, right? But they can't appoint. The only people they can appoint are internal auditors. So one is out. So we are left with 2 and 4. Definitely, we know external auditors express opinion on the truth and fairness of financial statement, right? In our own opinion, the financial statement shows that. Number 2, when an external auditor issues his opinion, and the reports are usually available, are publicly available to shareholders. I did say on the website, they are publicly available to shareholders. So for listed entities, you most likely see it, they are published, right? But for non-listed, where there are very few shareholders and the likes, they are always available to those shareholders, right? So that's why the answer is 2 and 4 for which is 2 and 4 for external auditors. Let me see, and 1 and 3 for internal. Any questions? Okay, you have a question. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Sibyl, shoot.
Okay, I have a question. I picked 2 and 4. I picked C, but I just want to confirm. I struggled with that 3 because it said review effectiveness of internal control to improve operations. I thought this was the job of the director guys, and then the internal auditors were to implement the internal control. I knew it wasn't external, but at the same time, I didn't think it was for. Are they
No,
supposed to
no.
review?
So the internal auditors don't implement internal control.
Yeah.
Management is responsible for the internal control system, right? what the internal auditors do is that they do reviews of internal controls from time to time to see if there are deficiencies and to see if there are areas that needs to be improved or within the internal control system. So that's more of, but that's why, for example, in some organizations, you have a different department called internal control and a different office called internal audit. Internal audit are like post-mortem. They do things after the fact. Internal controls are more within the process of the organization. So they're more like management, trying to ensure controls are implemented and the likes. Okay.
Thank you.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Are they done? Are they done?
Okay, sir. I thought external auditors are they also like do control of the company.
Eh?
I thought external audits like they also reviewed the controls of the company. So yes, like what Mrs. Zulai what she
I can
said.
quickly answer that question. I can quickly answer that question. So external auditors review the controls that would help them make a conclusion. So they don't review the controls of the company. So they've identified certain processes, they've identified the relevant processes, and they've identified the relevant controls within the process that will be relevant for reliance, right? So based on those ones that they considered relevant, they will now review and test. That's what the external auditors do. They will not review, it's not part of their process or part of their responsibility to review effectiveness of their own control. Whatever conclusion the external auditor has is for his own purposes to see if the controls that will be used for financial reporting are sufficient for that purpose. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Ogane. Ogane, is this an old and? Okay, I guess an old and. Okay, great. So let's go to number 5. If the internal and external audit assignments are accepted, which of the following statement is true regarding the proposed basis of the fee? If the internal and external audit engagements are accepted, which of the following statement is true regarding the proposed basis of the fee? A, as long as the total fee received from Maldini is less than 50% of the firm's total fee income, then no safeguards are needed. 2, the client should be informed that only the internal audit fee can be based on profit before tax, profit after tax. C, the fee should be based on Maldini's PBT. And D, no safeguards can be applied as this basis of fee determination should be rejected. So what do we think? Okay, I think I'll just need to be fast with this one. This one is pretty straightforward. Okay, who is going for A? Okay, Philip is going for A. Philip, can you tell me why it is A?
Answer is C. I'm sorry.
Philip, can you tell me why it's A?
So
Philip?
yeah, it's it should not be based on profit. It should be based on something that is predetermined, so that this threat doesn't come up. What is it? Intimidation doesn't come up. Then A, I think is one of the things I read.
Okay.
15% something.
Okay. So, okay, I'll come back to your answer. Who's going for B? B? Who is going for C? Okay, and who is going for D?
D. C.
Okay, let me assume every other person is going for D.
D.
You get what I'm saying? Okay, so an audit firm cannot accept fees that are contingent, right? So that's why it has to be rejected. The reason why it's not A is that, for example, if it's just external audit trust fee, external audit fee for external audit purposes, that's what we will say that it shouldn't be more than 15%, right? Because once it's more than 15%, it shows that you are solely dependent on a client, and which technically will mean that your there will be threats to your independence from a self-interest perspective and the like. You want to lose the client. So, but that is from an external audit perspective alone. Yeah, and as you have said, intimidation as well. So, but it's from an external audit point, not completely about external audit and internal audit. A financial audit will not solely rely on a client for over 50% of his fee. Okay, just to for me. Just to for me. Are you there? Okay, your answer still
Hello, sir.
raised, but I guess it's
Oh, sorry, it was for
okay.
D. Not like I'm sorry.
Okay, great. So it's D, and you got it right. This correct. Okay, great. So we'll move on. So I will move on to the risk question. Milako. I will try not to, so that we don't spend time on the knowledge-based question. I just want us to focus on identification of risk here. So what I'm going to do is just give you again the principles of answering questions on risks on this subject matter. They've told you, using the minutes provided, identify and describe 7 audit risks and explain the auditor's response to each risk in planning the audit of Milako. Now, remember that they said 7 audit risks, right? And within the question, you would always have more than 7 audit risks. You would have like 8, 9, 10 risks. All you just need is select 7 out of it. That's first rule. Second rule is that each paragraph, except for the introductory paragraph, would have at least 1 risk. So if you are reading paragraphs and you feel like you're not finding anything, in your mind, just know that you have missed some risk. Third rule is not enough to identify risk. To say you have identified it, you need to be able to document the basis for your risk and the impacts. Identifying a risk gives you 1 mark. So, sorry, describing a risk gives you 1 mark. So it means for you to describe a risk, you need to use the principle of, for example, SBI. You need to describe the situation that you saw that made you feel like a risk exists here. Then B means what's the basis upon which you feel there's a risk. And I is what's the impact. So as you're describing it, if you can use that approach, SBI, you will get your 1 point. You will now have to provide a response to the risk that you have identified. So providing a response would give you your 2 marks. Remember, each risk item it carries 2 marks. So in this case, they said 7 audit risk. You can see it's 14 marks. Audit risk is one of the simplest areas to actually get your marks and move on. So what I'm going to do is, as usual, I want to facilitate us walking through this question. What I'm hoping we will do is I'm going to share a blank Word document. We all have this screen. We all have this question, right? So as you guys highlighting them. I'm going to be listing them on the in the blank Word document. So I'm just going to tabulate it as you would see in your exam or audit risk response. So that's what you see next. Please, you have this question already. You can go through this question yourself and then we can walk through it together. Okay, so let's go. Remember SBI and your audit response. Please be happy to just come off mute or raise your hands and I'll tell you, okay, this is it. I'm also looking for a volunteer who will read the question. So as you're reading, or let me make it easy. I'm going to read the question. But just stop me when you feel I've passed the risk. I would read on if you don't stop me. Okay, so I'm going to share.
Sir, sorry to distract you. Please, can you come again with the XBI explanation? I didn't really get it.
Okay, so SBI is situation, basis, and impact, right? And we're going to give an example. Most importantly, for those who have been in session before, and you will see the way they would answer it. So situation is you just copying that. You don't need to retype it. You don't need to think about it. You have seen something within the question. You feel there's a risk here. Just copy. That's the situation. So when you feel that is a risk, is the basis. Then you now tell us, oh, in line with IS 38, things are meant to be done this way, but this is not the way it has been done. That's your basis, right? Then your impact is because of how they've done it, is going to overstate expenses and understate intangible asset. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so but you would see how we will answer one or two questions, one of two of those items, then you would have a feel of how you would go about it. So I'm going to stop sharing the PDF and I'll now share a Word document. Okay. Can I see my screen, please? Can you guys see my screen, please?
Not yet, not yet. Yes, no.
Okay. So I'm going to, so your exam, the table will be like this: audit risk and response, or audit response. So let me start reading.
Okay.
Okay, so let me start reading. Sorry. Miller Co. manufactures fizzy drinks such as cola and lemonade, as well as other soft drinks, and its year end is 30 September 20x5. You're an audit manager of Totti and Co. and are currently planning the audit of Miller Co. You attended the planning meeting with the audit engagement partner and finance director last week, and the minutes from the meeting are shown below. You are reviewing this as part of the process of preparing the audit strategy document. Now, I've read the first paragraph. That first paragraph doesn't really add any value. So it means that you most likely not see any major thing in the first paragraph. So don't bother, but don't stress yourself. In very unusual periods, you will see something, but most times they're just for information purposes. The first paragraph. Now, every other risk you are going to identify starts after the first paragraph when they talk about the business. So minutes of the planning meeting for Milako, please, if you have identified something, when I get there, please stop me. Milaco's trading results have been strong this year, and the company is forecasting revenue of 85 million, which is an increase from the previous year. The company has invested significantly in the cola and fizzy drinks production process at the factory. This
Hello.
resulted in
Okay. Milaco's trading results have been strong this year, and the company is forecasting revenue of 85 million, which is an increase from the previous year. So there is a risk around that place.
For what?
So what's the risk?
There is a risk that the revenue might be overstated.
Why?
But
Why?
it's a forecast.
Well, okay.
They're doing everything within their power to ensure that
I
They could
think
have
that the
reported
I
fictitious
think that
revenue.
the risk is still in between. What we've not gotten there.
I think it's a
It's
risk
still
because they're not supposed to overstate the
yeah. That's
revenue.
what I'm saying.
Shouldn't be
they are
That's what I'm
overstated.
saying.
forecasting. It's a forecast.
The,
It's not the
yeah, the
actual.
risk.
We're
It's a
supposed to be
forecast.
yes, but they are
The
supposed
risk
to
is
be
still in the
prudent.
paragraph. I don't think Olumide has gotten there. That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
The risk is
that's
still at
true.
the end of the paragraph. Like
Yes.
that's what he's saying. We need to state it clearly. The risk is the fact that if we don't classify the cost properly, we may overstate our intangible assets. If it was supposed to be under if it's supposed to be a revenue expenditure and then we put it as a capital expenditure, then we will overstate our intangible assets and understate the potential liability. I think it's classification. Is it presentation? I usually mix those two, but I think that's the
Yes,
risk in this
classification.
question.
It's
Yeah.
Classification, right? I think
Yeah.
that's the
Okay,
risk in
okay.
this
Oh,
I
sorry.
feel
question.
Oh,
like that
sorry.
first
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh.
that first sentence is still
Can I
exists.
proceed? Can I proceed? Can I proceed?
Yes, yes, you can.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, can I
By all
proceed?
means, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
Yes.
please.
great. So I'm going to proceed from where I stopped.
Mm.
I'm happy to tell you that when I stopped, you don't identify it. So because I stopped at forecasting revenue of 85 million, which is an increase from previous year. So there's no risk so far.
Exactly.
You can forecast revenue, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if I read some other things down the line, and I feel like, oh, that might have impacted on why the continue for this much, then I can start linking it as a risk. But as of now, based on the information I've read so far, there's nothing pointing to the fact that there's a risk.
Mm-hmm.
So I will proceed. So the company has invested significant process of at the factory. This resulted in expenditure of 5 million on updating, repairing, and replacing a significant amount of the machinery used in the production process.
This is where the
So
risk is.
The risk here.
Yes, it says that it resulted in expenditure of $5 million on updating, repairing, and replacing. Remember in IAS, that IAS on talking about how we classify cost on
Static,
research and development.
static,
It says
intangible.
that.
Yes, that is.
Hello?
You're actually talking about IAS system. This is talking about PPE, not tangible assets. It's PPE, IAS system. That is talking about the expenditure that you make on repair maintenance. You need to
Yes,
look at
yes,
it,
yes, yes.
keep
That's the
up
IAS
with
I'm trying to refer to.
capitalization. If
Exactly.
those costs actually add to the the useful life of the asset or the productivity capacity of that
Yes,
asset. So and it
yes,
meets the capitalization threshold of the firm. So we need to look at it
yes,
and determine. So yeah, so it's on that basis. So on that basis,
yes.
the risk there is that the PPE might be understated, while the
Mm-hmm.
expenditure is overstated. That means
Actually
the
understated.
profit will be on. If the expenditure is overstated, then the profits will be understated.
Understated.
okay,
Thank you.
oh, sorry,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, oh, sorry, oh, sorry. Oh. I'm already lost. So who is answering this question? Who is
So
volunteering to answer
everybody.
Everybody.
this part? No, no,
mm,
no, I don't know
Really, sir.
anybody but everybody. I need someone to
Okay.
answer this question in an SBI format. Okay.
Okay,
Cool. Yeah.
let me answer it from my side. The way I would answer it specifically in the exam, like you said, I'm going to copy the part that states this
Oh
resulted.
yeah, copy it and
company has-
say it. Copy it and say it.
yes,
Oh yeah.
the company has invested significantly in the cola and fizzy drinks production process at the factory. This resulted in expenditure of 5 million on updating, repairing, and replacing a significant amount of the machinery used in the production process. This is a risk because IAS, I can't remember, IAS 16, let me just depend on what she told me. IAS 16 says that expenditure that is of capital nature, the expenditure that adds to the useful life of an asset in an organization should be capitalized in the accounting records, whilst the ones based on, let me see, on research, repairs should be expensed. Now, there is a risk of costs that should be capitalized being expensed, and the other way around. If the costs that should be capitalized are being expensed, it means that our assets are understated, expenses are overstated, and profits will be understated. Now, the response of the auditor should be to ask for a breakdown of the costs and ensure that costs that should be capitalized are capitalized and costs that should be expensed are expensed. The auditor can also look at the breakdown of the financial records and ensure that that is how it has been classified. And if they see that it has not been classified as it should, they should advise accordingly. That's how I'll answer it in the exam for this risk.
Okay. Thank you, Odunayo. So
You're welcome.
Odunayo has answered this bit. And from a principal perspective, you got it right.
Okay.
Maybe your answer needs to be more coherent. It needs to be more
Yes.
what do you call it? Yeah, it just needs to be clearer. But from what you are saying,
Right.
I can see that you understand what you're saying, right? So other than that, I feel you got it perfectly right. So we're talking about you an expenditure has been incurred. So that's how I'm going to start. An expenditure has been incurred of 5 million for the repair this and that purposes. Then I will now say that I'll talk about the requirement of IS 16 PPE, which indicates that items that are capital nature should be capitalized as PPE, and if the items that are more of repairs should be expensed. So if this is not properly done or properly treated, my profit or PPE might be over or understated.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's a lot of dynamics, and because it's open-ended, it's going to be difficult to start saying profit or loss on that over. So I could just say, if it is not properly treated, in the way of in line with the requirements of IS 16, then my profit or PP might be over or understated. So when I'm getting to my response, and that's where maths can be easily gotten as well, because they're talking about the fact.
Please, I have a quick question before you go to the response. Apologies for interrupting you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Victoria.
Okay. Yes, please. So instead of saying that the profit or non-current assets could be over or under, can we just say could be misstated in the exam? Instead of saying over or under. And did you get that?
Hello, Olivier.
Network, please.
Sorry,
Okay.
I missed what you said. Sorry.
Did you get my question?
Victoria,
I'm
I
not sure.
take it again, please.
Okay. I'm saying that in the exam, instead of writing profit or the non-current asset could be over or understated, can we just say profit or non-current asset could be misstated? And also, can we use the word could or may? I mean, I'm just trying to get specificity of how we should write.
Victoria, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? No, I didn't get your question. My network just disappeared. Hello? Hello?
Okay, can you hear me now? I'm taking
Okay,
again.
so profit. Sorry, can I answer? Okay, can you hear me? No, I heard you. Can you hear me? I can respond to your question. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, can you guys hear me? Or is there a lag
Yes,
between my
we
answers?
can hear you.
Okay, cool. So, because of the way, if you look at past contracts, I feel like they're always very interested on whether you understand the impact on profit or not. So when you use the word misstated, it looks like you're not sure of whether it's under or over. Now, this particular one is quite tricky because it could go either way, right? Because of the way the question is, the risk was identified. But usually, you will be so clear as to whether it's going to be under or over. So what I would advise you to do is to state it specifically of what the impact would be. If you feel the impact will be understated, put it as understated. If you feel it could go both ways, put under slash over. Does that make sense? So because a risk, when you say something is a risk, it means it's not that it has occurred. It means it can occur. So it's a risk, right? So if you use could or may or might, I think it's still fine. The use of could, may, might are necessarily not audit terminologies, right? They're more grammar or the way you word your tenses, but definitely not audit terminology. So you're still fine. Does that answer your
All
question?
right, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Ebuka, I wanted to ask a question.
Yes. So for the audit risk now, I'm sorry to take you guys back, but I was thinking, can I just use the word like there's a risk of me misstating the capex and opex in line with IAC 16 PPE instead of going. I understand that instead of going through the long rigorous talk of having to, well, I just go straight to the point. Mix
Okay,
of
so let me quickly answer that question. Ebuka, let me quickly answer that question. So if you go, I feel they want you to tell us what the requirements of IS 16 is, right? That made you feel like it's a risk. Because now, for the fact that you're saying there's a risk that this could be over or understated because of the requirements of IS 16, I don't know what requirement you're talking about. It might be good for you to describe the requirement and now say, okay, if you can put it in the same sentence, if you don't want to go through second paragraph or stuff, if it can contain the same sentence and you say, okay, this is the requirement of IS 16, and because of this requirement, you feel like it could be misstated or under overstated, then that would make a lot of sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So what if we're not sure of the IAS? How we put it? Like if I'm not sure that this is the number.
No. You're not sure if that's a number. So how will you describe the basis?
And like we know that okay, yes, there's an IAS that says this, but we're not sure of the number. Do we
No, I
need
agree
to
with you. I'm
state
just trying
that?
to. I don't think you'll be penalized for not stating IS. Even if you know IS, it and not even putting PP is fine. At this stage, I don't think you'll be penalized. But what I am hoping is how you're going to clearly document or demonstrate that, okay, this is a requirement of a standard, because you need to describe your basis. So you say the standard the
say that
standard
according to
in
the
relation the standard relating to PPE indicates that something like that, but you just need to be able to clearly state your basis. But I would advise to just, if that's what you want to do, just kind of have a feel of what IS 16, IS 1, all of those kind of stuff is saying. And because the questions are usually on the same themes, right? IS 38, IS 16, they're specifically on the same themes. That's what I've seen over the years. So you most likely not, if you're seeing something new, not going to be more than one or two risk. Every other thing is something you have seen before from a standard perspective. So just familiarize yourself with it. Okay. Have I answered your question? Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you guys hear me? Okay, cool. Bukola, are your answer raised? Sibyl?
Yes. Yes, please. So I just want to be sure that it is safe to use either under or overstated, like saying that the asset is under or overstated. Is it safe to use it? Are we going to be
No,
penalized?
it's not safe. It's not safe. Don't go with the safe. If the impact is just under, please go with under.
Okay.
If the impact is just over, go with over. The only time you will use over or under is when it has two sides to it.
So how do we know when it has two sides?
Oh, okay. It's usually always very clear. So what I would tell you is that we're going to just go to other sentences, and you would see instances where we would say under or over. Do you get what I'm trying to say? You would see instances like that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
All right.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Sibyl?
Okay, I just wanted to say something in line with what someone had asked. So they had told us that if you understand the requirements of the standard and you could describe it, to say that for example in this question that the expenditure, you're supposed to split and capitalize the ones that are of capital nature and expense the ones that you can just say in line with the relevant accounting standards. But even though you say that, that's just to avoid calling the number. You should describe the requirements of that standard. Yes, so I just wanted to say that if it will help the person that asked.
I wanted to ask that, can we just say in
Thank you.
accordance with IS something, 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 like without necessarily mentioning the number? Because it's actually a lot to take in. Hello?
Hello, is anyone okay? Network is bad. I can hear you, but his network is bad.
Without, yes, you can. You, is a lot.
Shalom, your network is poor. We can't hear you. You come on and then go off. No
I
problem.
didn't know it's a lot
Not clear.
actually, but uh, 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 you can mention in a IS. IS is of the requirements of IS, something like that. You can just, you don't necessarily need. Oh, hello? Hello? Okay, let me try and.
Please repeat what you said.
The network is
We can't
breaking up.
hear you.
Yes.
It was breaking. So is it just me or we can't? Nobody's saying anything.
It's Olumide's network.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I guess it needs to fix it.
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
now I hear you.
Hello. Okay, is it
Yes, we
clear
can
now?
hear you now. Mm.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So, did I miss out on? Did I miss out on any
You
question?
didn't miss out on anything. We're just waiting for you
Or
to get back.
did everyone hear the answers to the questions I provided?
No, we didn't hear you. Your voice was breaking.
We didn't hear anything, Mr. Lumide.
Sorry, did anybody miss the answers I provided? Sorry, so that I know. Hello?
Yeah,
Okay,
the
but
question
can you
that
hear
you
me now? Can you hear me now?
yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So what I'm saying, is what I'm saying is, have I been able to provide the answer to okay, respond to it again?
The line is still breaking now.
It's still breaking.
Yes.
That's serious.
But then it comes clearer sometimes. Like I just heard what you said last.
Sorry, is
That's
it
it.
okay? Is it better now?
It's better now. So maybe you need to
Okay,
re-explain
great.
that.
Okay, so what's the question you guys want me to explain so that I wouldn't miss it? I've talked about the fact that we need to that depending on the direction, and as we solve questions as we get to other paragraphs, you would you would see how we would make use of that.
Your network has gone again.
Hello, please. How can
So
I
you can
get the
continue.
question?
Are you guys hearing me?
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Let me change my network.
Okay.
Please, how can I get the question?
On the group chat.
What's the name of the question that was shared in the group chat? Because I can't see Milako.
Revision AA class.
The one that was shared today.
Yes,
He shared it this afternoon, the second document.
the second document.
The group chat you're talking about,
It's on the WhatsApp group. Let me try to change my network.
is it on the chat group of this call?
No, it's on the WhatsApp group chat.
Yes, this person knows. Yes.
Okay, guys, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, can you guys hear me? Is it better?
Your voice is still lagging.
Hi, Olumide, your network is bad.
Hello.
Maybe we should go
Your
on
voice
break
is still
for like 10
lagging.
minutes.
Exactly. Wow, you figure it out.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So, that was serious. Okay, maybe we should go on break. Okay, you can hear me. Okay, great. So, so I was saying that we can use may, we can use under or over, depending on the relevant instance. So if the instance is for under, use under. The instance is for over, use over. Now, do you need to grasp of standard? Yes. Not if you, for example, if you don't know the standard, it's better not to even quote it than you quote the wrong standard, right? The incorrect standard. So you most likely want to, because if you look at the questions on AA, the standards, applicable standards is usually the same because the themes are usually kind of the same all through the period. Maybe they will just introduce one or two new standards, but they're always within IS 16, IS 2, IS 38, and the like. So IS is standard out of the ordinary. So just look at those relevant standards and try to know them. Know them high level, not necessarily the basic level, right? So to be able to do that, I think you should be fine. Okay, so have I been able to capture the questions and I provide the answers to them, right?
Yes. Yes,
Guys,
we
can
have.
you hear me? I'm not getting it.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So
You were about to explain
it
the
means
response.
I'm lagging to some people. Okay, that makes sense. Yes. So the response. So first response should be because because we're referring to the expenditure that was incurred, which is 5 million, right? So it means for you to even do anything or provide a response, you need to look at what management has done. Uh, uh, so it means that first you need to obtain the breakdown and possibly understand management's classification or the appropriateness of management. If there are specific areas that there are differences, you need to obtain an explanation from management on why they provided a specific treatment to specific line item. If otherwise, it means if your position still remains, you need to manage to correct those differences. Then review the financial not having adjusted. That's all.
Mide, your voice is breaking.
Oh, it's still breaking.
Yes.
I said, let's go on break now so that
Okay,
you can figure this
so
one out. You
can I
can't
take what?
continue with this epileptic network.
Okay. 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 Let's go on 10 minutes break. Thank you. Okay, let's go on break, please. Thank you. 10 minutes. Be back 59. Thank you.
Please, guys, are we on break?
Yes,
On
please.
break for 10 minutes.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, is it clear?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. So, uh, so let me take the audit response again. You know, what we're talking about as the audit risk is the fact that they've incurred some expenses, there are some expenditure, and we feel like there's a risk that those expenditures might not be properly classified as to whether they are capital expenditure or normal expenses. And that could give rise to over or understatement of profits or PPE. And for us to be able to audit that risk, we need to obtain the breakdown of those expenditure. We need to obtain the breakdown of those expenditure. Sorry, Nedo? Nedo? Hello, Nedo? Sorry, can I proceed?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So we need to obtain the breakdown of the expenditure. And once we've obtained the breakdown, the objective is to confirm if management has appropriately, or to validate that management has appropriately classified those expenses depending on their nature. Now, if there are areas where we believe that those expenses have not been appropriately classified, you need to discuss with management.
Olumide, can't hear you.
We can hear him more.
We can hear you.
I can hear him too.
Okay, so Rosemary, it looks like they can all hear me. Okay, so we need to obtain the breakdown of all the expenses of the cost to validate if it have been appropriately classified in line with the nature of those assets. If there are areas that we have considered we have disagreement or differences with management's classification, we need to discuss with management to understand the rationale around the classification. Then once we've been able to do that, if we still hold on to our classification, then we need to ask management to.
Can anybody hear him?
I can't hear him again.
I can't hear him.
Okay, guys, sorry, I think my network is pretty bad today. I've changed my network again, and it's still very bad. So, someone is expected was meant to continue the session in 5 minutes time. What I'm hoping we can do. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what
Yes, sir.
so I have like 5 minutes more because someone else is taking the other half of the class. What I was hoping we can do is either of two things. First is I feel like either I can have a repeat of this session where when I think it's going to be better, maybe tomorrow evening, 8, 9 or something, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Once I get permission from the group for my administration, if we are okay with that. So that's so that we can take us through planning and risk assessment again and possibly just run through internal control because I was meant to take you through that. But I just wanted to spend more time on planning and risk assessment. Right. So I was hoping I could do that. But or I was hoping I could just do a voice note where I would explain the answers one for each of those risks. So what do you guys think? Because I only have like 3 minutes more with you.
I think the voice note works, so as far as it's explicit.
Like 7 to 9. The voice note should be on if you are
I
going to
think
drop
the
the
voice,
voice note on WhatsApp, that would be fine.
yes, I
I
think it
think the
works
voice note
because
is fine.
there's no time for full class again. No. Exam is next week.
Okay. So the voice note works, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and drop it on WhatsApp, please.
Hello, sir. Well,
Yes,
I'll
sir.
actually be suggesting something like a pre-recorded session that like a video, like maybe the link can be shared. Possible.
Okay. I think that works as well. So I could do a pre-recorded um video audio on this planning and risk assessment. Then I'll walk us through this question. Then I will send a link to the WhatsApp or through this Teams platform. Does that make sense?
WhatsApp would be better, please. It's not everybody that has access to WhatsApp, please.
Okay. So through the WhatsApp platform. So I'm going to do that and I'm going to share that with you. So I'm hoping I will do that on or before tomorrow evening and I will share. Sorry for it's just very funny today. And it's unusual. And yeah, so I think that's all from me. Someone else will be taking over from me now, and we'll be talking through audit evidence and audit reporting. Please. At this point in time, I'm on team. So I was saying before my network disappeared again. Try to drop messages, questions on Teams. I always read through everything. If I feel like I need to make an input into something, I would make an input. If I feel like it's fine, I wouldn't say anything. Always try. You guys need to collaborate more, to ensure you guys have better insights to some of your challenges. Yeah. Okay. I think that's all from me. And to have a beautiful evening and enjoy the other part of the session.
Thanks, Olumide.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Olumide.
I need to meet you.
I said help me to mute my mic.